Hello, 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 and welcome back, family, to my channel. My name is Huddy, and tonight we're talking New York by Night. As always, this video is not scripted and these opinions are mine and mine alone. Just a quick disclaimer before we start, some of you may know that I am a community ambassador for World of Darkness, and so any teasers that you might see for upcoming episodes of New York by Night were likely made by me, meaning I did have early access, but I recorded my thoughts or at the very least wrote down some bullet points before moving on to the next episode. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about Season 2, Episode 2, A Beautiful Catastrophe, which isn't ominous at all. We begin the episode in medias res from Episode 1, where shit is going down inside the art gallery, the Frosted Glass. So if you missed that, you can watch my recap of Episode 1 here. The very first thing to mention is how different Braun's face looks, and we learned that because of the water pouring down from Coco pulling the fire alarm in the last episode, Braun's makeup application is ruined, revealing a more monstrous appearance underneath. Luckily, all the mortals have fled, so there's no further risk of a Masquerade breach, but let's face it, this is already a huge risk, as this public place has turned into a battlefield. We rejoin Kiem, who pulls a knife out of her bodice and plunges the knife into Lizzie as she pulls her and holds her close. This gets Airbox's attention on Kiem, so Braun takes the opportunity to tackle Airbox to the ground. Kalita, up in the office, still with Karabo, is in the process of using the Forgetful Mind, erasing and changing his memories. She convinces him that he didn't get a good look at the people who destroyed his paintings or who instigated the brawl, instead informing him that they said they were from the Bronx and that she had purchased all the paintings before this had happened, so he owes her money, but that they'll square up at some other time. Afterwards, Kalita runs down to the gallery floor and meets the eyes of two looky-loos trying to film the action through the broken glass Kiem was thrown through. She dominates them successfully to erase all their photos and videos. Coco, meanwhile, is outside the gallery facing down the Ravnos Argus, Seraph's sire and Seraph's mother, Alicia. These details, of course, are unknown to Coco. Argus says her shadows are a neat trick he hasn't seen in a while and tells Coco to let his associate go and he'll stay to answer her questions. But Coco doesn't want to let either of them out of her sight. Back inside, Kiem and Braun are working in tandem, both with a solid grip on their opponents. Kiem tells Airbox and Lizzie to stop resisting and come with them, that if they do, no one else will get hurt. But Airbox says no and tells Braun to let him go and they'll settle it at the pit. Braun accuses Airbox correctly of being an Anarch, pushing him harder down into the ground and telling Kiem to get out of there with Lizzie. Kiem quickly drags Lizzie out the back door where Coco is. Braun, noticing Kalita is back on the floor, yells at her to shoot this guy, but Airbox is still fighting back. Braun, starting to wonder if this is a losing battle, uses his Potence ability of prowess to lift and kick Airbox out that shattered window. Outside, Coco asks Argus what his business was in the gallery, and Argus claims that art is his business. Coco then asks about the tagged concrete slab he was so interested in, but he refuses to elaborate, so Coco pulls out her pistol and shoots the tires of his sleek town car. Alicia, in response, begins to try and drive away anyway, the rims scraping against the pavement. Argus, likely using Daunt, intimidates Coco into leaving, and she spends all of her remaining willpower to stand her ground against him. Kiem interrupts this battle of wills by bursting out of the gallery with Lizzie in tow. Coco tells her to leave, and Alicia successfully drives away, leaving Argus alone. Kiem continues on to the street side, while Coco cloaks herself in shadow, making her appearance seem more sinister and threatening, telling him that this isn't over and that she will find him again, before running back into the gallery to get a piece of the artwork that Lizzie created and Kiem destroyed. Kiem, Lizzie, Kalita, and Braun all make their way back to Wilcox in the car. Lizzie asks Kiem who they are and if they know who she works for, and Kiem admits that they don't know anything about her. Coco joins them and Kalita instructs Wilcox to burn rubber back to the Sterling. Lizzie and the coterie have a conversation in the car, and it quickly becomes apparent that Lizzie is an Anarch and claims to not have to answer to Camarilla rules, which is an odd thing to say since she's in their territory, but I digress. And Braun tells her she's in for a rough night if that's her opinion. Kalita notices that Braun doesn't exactly look the way he did when they got to the gallery, and he apologizes for his face, to which everyone exclaims that there's nothing wrong with his face, and he should only hide it if he wants to or needs to. Lizzie, fixated on her artwork, asks why Kiem destroyed her painting. They claim that it was hypnotizing people, but Lizzie says so what, it wasn't hurting them. They ask her how she did this, but she refuses to elaborate. Now if I was a gambling gal, I would say that Lizzie, or someone she knows, possesses a great deal of presence and auspex, and has has a power called Magnum Opus. It states in the Vampire the Masquerade Winter's Teeth comic book series, with this ability, the user may sublimate and infuse the powers of the blood into their works of art, capable of rendering sculptures so beautiful as to make the viewer fall in love with them, or paintings of such ghastly disquiet they make even the most visceral Caravaggio seem facile by comparison. This masterwork is merely an illusion, however, a flash-in-the-pan beauty that does not withstand deep scrutiny. Kalita texts Rafferty a gif of a dumpster on fire, and Rafferty calls her, which prompts Braun to cover Lizzie's mouth. Kalita informs her sire that there was a magical painting at the gallery that likely was breaking the masquerade, and that they have taken the artist with them. Kalita texts him a picture of Lizzie and then instructs Wilcox to drive to the back of the Sterling, not the front. Lizzie claims to want to go back to the Bronx, back to her coterie mates Airbox, who Braun is intimately familiar with, and Richter. There's a conversation about Anarch v. Camarilla, and as per usual, both parties are talking to a brick wall, with neither one of them conceding to the other's points. Rafferty meets them at the car, which makes Kalita visibly nervous, but Rafferty asks after her well-being, to the surprise of everyone, or maybe just me. The surprises keep on coming as Rafferty informs his security to take Lizzie somewhere to wait and to make sure she's comfortable, that she's not being mistreated, as well as instructing everyone to head to a different suite where they could clean up and change into dry clothes that he will provide them. Braun seems pretty happy with how the night went down, but Kalita far less so, who exclaims that there is a severe disconnect in their teamwork that needs to be rectified as soon as possible. Coco attempts to use the phone, but just as earlier, her bane rears its ugly head. Braun then thanks Kiem for fighting with him and offers to take the blame for the brawl, but Kiem doesn't think what she did was wrong, and if it was, she's not willing to let Braun take the fall alone. Braun, damaged and hungry, asks Kalita if there's somewhere he can get a drink, and Kalita offers to order room service, which Braun agrees to after it's made clear that it's not the regular human kind of room service. Kiem claims that she's fine, but she'd like to watch, so Toreador, while Coco starts yelling about the phone not working for her, hashtag just La Sombre things. Kiem notices that Coco's reflection looks more like a black smear in the window, and Coco talks about the effects of her bane. Braun is less than sympathetic, considering the bane of his own clan, but Coco snaps back with, try looking into a mirror and staring into the void, which shuts him up pretty quickly. Coco goes on to elaborate that she struggles to run her family's business with her inability to use a phone or most technology. A tray arrives eventually with a silver dome on it, and underneath are 4 crystal glasses filled with warm human blood. As the rest drink the blood before it cools, Coco waits for that moment that it begins to congeal before downing it. This means that Coco very likely has the grave robber predator type. Despite the name, this doesn't mean vampires with this predator type don't enjoy snacking on living mourners should they encounter them. Kalita offers Braun her glass as he's mending, since all of them are aware of the dangers of such a thing, but despite the extra glass, Braun is just as hungry as he was before the drink. Kalita offers to dial the number for Coco, and Coco speaks Spanish to the person on the other end, who calls her either Helena or Elena, I'm not sure. She tells this person that she is at Rafferty's, like he asked, and tells him she ran into another Kindred who can make illusions. He suggests that she ask Rafferty and then tell him what Rafferty said, so they can determine how much Rafferty can be trusted. Again, if I was a betting gal, I'd say this is Coco's sire. With the coterie changed into dry clothes and refreshed, except for poor Braun, they head to Rafferty's suite, where they met in the beginning of the evening. Rafferty assures them all that the masquerade breach at the gallery seems to be intact as of right now, unless it shows up on Talk Talk somewhere. Rafferty truly embodies the stuffy, boomer Ivory Tower Ventru, and I'm here for it. Rafferty asks for an explanation of the night, and Braun says the paintings were fucky, to which Rafferty responds with an unfamiliarity for the term fucky, so Braun says the paintings were pedantic, ? And I was rolling. I hope Braun just keeps using that word randomly for the rest of the season. It's always hilarious. Kiem confidently explains that the paintings were entrancing the mortals, so she destroyed them and secured Lizzie, the artist. Kalita adds that 2 artists were featured, Lizzie and another named Seraph, but Coco adds that Seraph was not in attendance, but her parents were. Of course, we know that Argus likely isn't Seraph's biological father, but is certainly her progenitor. Coco goes on to talk about the illusion that he threw at her, and after Coco's description of his person, Rafferty adamantly asks if she's sure and asks if she made any deals with him, to which Coco denies. Rafferty goes on to name Argus and his clan of Ravnos, and Rafferty seems completely thrown off by Argus's appearance at the frosted glass. Braun goes on to tell Rafferty about Airbox, a person Rafferty seems to be familiar with, along with their coterie mate Richter, but Rafferty seems completely unaware of who Lizzie is. Coco offers the tattered bit of the painting she recovered and reveals that it was she who pulled the fire alarm to expedite the leaving of the mortals, which seems to up Rafferty's score of their mission to a solid B. Rafferty reveals that all of them, save for Kalita, are here because he owes their sires a debt, so it is incumbent upon him to offer them a piece of his domain, which they must share. Again, this is very reminiscent of Season 1 when Richter offered the Anarch coterie some turf in the Bronx. What differs, however, is while the Anarchs were successful in doing as Richter asked, the Camarilla coterie were a little too messy for Rafferty's taste, so he offers them only half of the domain he was originally going to give them, a piece in Chelsea which includes the Frosted Glass Gallery, with the chance to earn the rest of the territory in the future. Rafferty reveals to the coterie that he has several real estate investments, one of which being a luxury condominium complex called the Crescent, which is something that I and many family members were suspect of since hearing about it in Season 1, Episode 3. This also lends credence to the idea that not only was Fuego embraced without permission, it seems unlikely Panhard would grant someone to Childer, especially one so easily quote-unquote lost to the Anarchs, but that Fuego was chosen for the embrace specifically because of her personal and professional ties to the area. For what ultimate purpose, though, is still unknown, but Rafferty does mention some trouble he's had over there, likely referencing not only one of the investors showing up dead in an alley, thanks to Fuego and Ray, but two security guards either dead or incapacitated, again thanks to Fuego and Bree the Gangrel. Rafferty also confirms another long-standing theory for the family that Lizzie is indeed Malkavian, something he learned during his brief questioning of her motives of creating the painting to begin with. Lizzie, of course, gave him no satisfactory answers. Rafferty gives them another mission, to escort Lizzie back to the cage in the Bronx. Kim and Braun ask why she should be let go since she broke the Masquerade, and it is here that we get a glimpse of how things work for the elites, those in the upper echelons of the Ivory Tower. Rafferty explains that she will be let go because it suits him at this time. Rules for thee, but not rules for me, or rules for thee, but only if it benefits me. Kiem is dissatisfied with this answer, to which Rafferty responds with the most Camarilla answer ever. The strong make the rules and interpret them as they see fit. Rules don't apply to everyone, rather, every night is a chess game. Rafferty leaves them for the night, and the coterie talk once again about how they should work as a team so they don't fuck up this new mission and lose out on the domain. They all congratulate each other on the things they did well, and the instigation of the fight notwithstanding, they make an unspoken pact to be more cohesive tomorrow night. They decide to go check on Lizzie, who immediately tells Braun that if they are taking her home, he should fight in the pit, the fighting ring at the cage. This is once again confirming that this season takes place after Season 1, Episode 6, since that is when the pit is open. Lizzie tells them the names of the rest of her coterie, including Consuela and Mario, which prompts Coco to admit that her name is Consuela. So maybe her sire was saying Suela or Wela on the phone to her, I don't know. Lizzie then decides to give everyone a prophetic little riddle as she stares at them through her parted, unkempt hair. The first goes to Kalita, and she says, "Round about the cauldron go, thrice to mine and thrice to thine. Naughty, naughty Lady M." This is of course a reference to Macbeth, specifically three witches chanting around a bubbling cauldron. A more well-known part of the scene is the line, "By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes." Lizzie apparently doesn't remember what she says, but she remembers what she sees. She saw a large black kettle filled with blood into which Kalita dropped a sword and a scepter. My interpretation of this vision, based on absolutely nothing, is that Kalita either does or will share a blood bond with her sire, Rafferty. This act of Macbeth has to do with Macbeth's growing fears about Macduff's loyalty, so it could even be the price Kalita will pay or be forced to pay to keep that loyalty. Coco is next, and Lizzie says, "Dead men tell no tales. He sleeps in the deep, below the sun, below hope, below love." Lizzie says she saw an old ship on the sea, beneath the ship, someone being lowered into the water on a chain, a man she doesn't know. While La Sombra and the sea, no surprise about the connection there is a lot of lore of Corsair pirate La Sombra sailing around the Sea of Shadows in the Dark Ages. If you want to know more about that and everything else about the clan, you can watch my video on them here. How this relates specifically to Coco is more vague. Perhaps the man she called was not her sire. Perhaps her sire is in torpor beneath the cold, dark ocean. Next is Braun, and Lizzie says, "Never take a dive." She says she saw Braun, or rather, she was Braun, wearing boxing gloves fighting in a ring, but she couldn't hit the other fighter, and she thought maybe she should just give up. But somebody's voice said never take a dive. Braun, out of all of them, seems happy with his vision and tells Lizzie it's good advice that everyone should follow. Kiem apologizes to Lizzie for stabbing her, but asks her not to give her a vision, which only makes me more curious about Kiem's backstory. I love when characters try and hide it. It makes me put on my detective glasses and my magnifying glass to really dive in and find their secrets. If you haven't already, please go follow The World of Darkness on Twitch and YouTube, and if you can, sub to those channels as well. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to me, and let me know your thoughts on Season 2, Episode 2, A Beautiful Catastrophe in the comments. As always, I'll see you in the next one.